Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Wayne Brown, and this is the Talkie Show. Yes, I know it's a silly name, but we have very serious content. Okay, tonight I have picked a subject of these things that we tolerate that drain us. Now, the subject matter is quite varied. And also, while I'm discussing this, if you have any comments, if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll answer them as best I can with what time I have. I tend to make these ones on my own a little bit shorter so people don't just have to listen to me waffle on. So, things that drain us. I'll give you an example. My second marriage, because I have been married before, yes, I have made that. I won't say the mistake. I chose the learning opportunity prior to my current marriage. And that marriage was one that definitely drained me. Now, the reason that it drained me was because there were many different aspects. There was conflict, there was different goals, there were unresolved issues. Whenever we had conflict, we didn't reach a resolution. We just sort of kept battling it out and wasting more time. So these sorts of things were a massive drain on me. And there's lots of different types of drains that we can have. We can be drained physically, we can be drained emotionally, mentally, financially, energetically, so many different ways that we can be drained. Now, how do you know if you're being drained? Well, a really good indicator is when you go to bed at night, do you wake up in the morning feeling refreshed? Do you feel like you've had a good sleep? Because if you wake up and you're not energized and ready to go again after having, your required amount of sleep, they say 8 hours, some people a little more, some a little less. For myself, I'm sort of between 6 and 7 hours. If you don't wake up feeling relatively energized and refreshed, you could be getting drained by something. Now, one of the first things you need to do if you're getting drained is you need to sit there and do a bit of a exploration of your life and the things that could be draining you. So start with the most obvious ones, the things that are closest to you, i.e. your physicality. Are you eating well? Are you minimizing your alcohol and things like that? Are you exercising? Are you at least being mobile? Because a lot of us have very sedentary lives nowadays. So we tend to go to an office, we tend to sit in our car a lot. So we have a inability to keep moving effectively. For example, one of the big things, if you're an office worker, if you're sitting down a lot, you have your hip flexors, which is a band of tendons at the front of your hip. They tend to shorten if we're sitting a lot. So it's always a good idea, if you're always sitting a lot, get up and do some hip flexor stretches. Those sorts of things will keep you mobile, they'll keep you limber, they'll keep you loose, and that will allow you, when you go to bed, to sleep a little better because you're more relaxed, you're not tense. Things like exercise have been proven again and again to allow you to sleep better. They keep your organs moving better. Your organs don't move. Your organs operating better. It allows your body basically to be more of what it's actually meant to be. So you start with your physicality. Are you eating well? Now, there's all sorts of diets and eating plans and out there, lots of different companies you can use to supply you with food to make sure you're eating well. The two things that I always bear in mind is that my grandparents, when they were growing up, one came from England and one was Australian. Back then, a big treat they used to have was a bit of bread with pure fat on it. So, or lard is what some people call it. And they would have that as a treat. That was a regular treat. They ate lean meat. They ate fruit and vegetables. They didn't have a lot of processed food, only because processed food wasn't very big back then. Processed foods generally, many years ago, were things like salami, all your processed meats, bacon, things like that. They didn't have processed foods or packaged foods as much until the 60s and 70s. Actually, no, 50s it started. So look at what you're eating and try and keep it as clean as you can. Now, many years ago, I read a book called Body for Life by a chap by the name of Bill Phillips. And he was one of these people that was going to the gym and he was working on his physique and he was trying to get big, but he just looked like a blob. So one day he thought, you know what, I'm going to get serious. So he came up with a proper exercise regime. He sat down and organised his eating. And the one thing he liked, which is a rule that I like to follow, is 6 days of the week you eat clean, you eat well. You don't eat anything that's not a bad food. And then on your 7th day, if you want to, you can go and eat all of your bad foods. You can have pizza all day or McDonald's or fish and chips or whatever it is you want to eat. That's the day you can have it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to. You've got the option of having it. So if you follow that as an idea, and that's what I try to do, 6 days I eat nice and clean. Then on the 7th day, if I feel like it, I'll have all of that other stuff. So that's another thing that will stop you feeling drained. So it's one of those things that you tolerate is a poor diet, which leaves you lacking in energy. So once you've looked at your own self, you've looked at your exercise, am I moving enough? And it doesn't have to be full on. You don't have to be going to the gym 6 days a week and all of this. It could be something as simple as what I have at home. I've got some kettlebells at the side of the lounge. I sit there and do 30 or 40 kettlebell swings just to get the heart rate up, to move the muscles, and that's just nice. Now, obviously, I do a little more than that. That's a good starting point. So that's something that will drain you, lack of exercise, and if you're tolerating it. So all of these things are things that are in your control. Your level of sleep, your exercise, what you're eating, how much you're drinking, all those things are within your direct control. The other things that could be draining you, or things that you're tolerating that could be draining you, could be things that are outside your control. You can influence them, you can't control them. Things like your spouse or your partner. You cannot control them. Do not think you can control your partner. If you think you can, you're pushing the proverbial uphill. You can, of course, influence them. You can inspire them. You can negotiate with them. Those sorts of things allow you to deal with the things that are draining you. So if you have conflict like I had in my second marriage, you learn how to deal with it. Now, back then, I didn't know how to deal with it, so it didn't get dealt with. It was not healthy. It was not clean. It was not productive. It was not effective. Nowadays, obviously, I have realized a lot more. Back then, not so fantastic. Thanks for the thumbs up, whoever that was. Much appreciated. So dealing with things like conflict go a long way to allowing you to deal with things that are draining you. So I don't know about you, but I back then, certainly when I had the conflict, I would have it going in my head again and again and be having the conversation and replaying it and trying to work out what I should have said, of course, to win the argument, which is always a silly thing. So look at the things within the relationship that are draining you, because you may have a degree of influence over it. I.e., the stuff that you're contributing to the relationship, you have a direct control over because you're dictating that. That's you. What your partner's doing, it's a different story, and that's where you need to get better at communicating. Now, one thing I learned many years ago, and I like this one, it's fun and a bit weird, however, beautifully effective. So I did a men's workshop weekend, and this thing that we learnt is called the wiffle stick. Now, a wiffle stick, what they used was a stick with feathers on it and all pretty stuff. You can literally use anything. You can use a glass. You can use your phone. You can use anything. The key is that when you're talking, the person who has the wiffle stick, they are allowed to say whatever they need to say without interruption. That means that they have control of the stick. They have control of the situation. They are allowed to speak. This allows them to get out everything they need. They don't have to justify or excuse or anything. They are just looking at emptying to get it all out. And then once they're finished, let's say it's my wife, and I'll say to her, use the whiffle stick, and she'll say everything she needs to say. Now, the key, and this is pretty important, is when you're talking, when you're emptying out, try as much as possible to use I statements. You're not looking at blaming the other person. You're not looking at pushing responsibility onto them. All you're doing is just getting out what you feel. So it's, I feel this because this happens. I seem to feel this because of this perception. And that allows you to empty out, or the other person. And then once they're done, they put the whiffle stick down and they say, that's what I feel like expressing. And then you're allowed to pick it up, or they're allowed to pick it up, whoever the other person is. And then they're allowed to respond. And it's the same rule. It's not about blaming. It's about emptying out and acknowledging what's said. So they might have said something that you never realized. It could be some guilt that they had, or some shame, or a fear, or a concern, or whatever it is. So one of the first things you do is you acknowledge, wow, I didn't realize you felt like that. And then that you're allowed to explore that from your side. And then when you're finished, you put the whiffle stick down and you say, that's what I feel like expressing. And then they pick it up and they can say what they need. And you just do this backwards and forwards, just emptying out. And it's not about being right or anything like that. It's about being heard. And for all of us, that's something that drains us immensely. If we're not heard, if we don't feel valued, if we don't feel worthy, if we don't feel appreciated, we tend to feel a lot more drained than we would normally. So conflict is one of those things that we tolerate. We put up with it, or we suppress it, we ignore it, or we go full blown into it. So it is one of those things that can drain us because we're tolerating it. If you've got poor outcomes with your conflict, don't tolerate it. Do something about it. Learn how to do it better. Use the whiffle stick. It's a great little tool. My ex-wife, there was a time when I felt she needed to be heard. There was a lot of stuff. I could see she was bursting to say it. I had a moment of lucidity and my brain was working. And I handed her the whiffle stick and said, there you go. And she spent half an hour, literally 30 minutes, just going bleh and saying everything she needed to say. And then when she'd finished, she said, that's what I feel like expressing. And I just went, thank you, and walked away because I wanted to give her that opportunity to be heard. So you've looked at your relationship. You've looked at your physicality. You've looked at your exercise, your eating, your sleep. A good thing for sleep, there's lots of little things that people do that affect their sleep. Don't look at your phone before half an hour before bed. Do something relaxing, like reading a book. It's what I do. I'm usually asleep before I get a half a page in, only because the brain knows it's bedtime and it shuts down. Don't put TVs in your bedroom. Keep the lights relatively dim, all of this sort of thing, and make sure you've got a good pillow, etc. So the next things that can be draining you could be your work. So you look at your work environment. What is it about your work that could be draining you, things that you're tolerating? Is there a layout of your workplace that causes you to be stressed and drains your energy? Is there a relationship within the work, like your boss or something, where you're having issues, you're having conflict, things aren't getting resolved, you're not being listened to, you're not being valued, you don't feel like you're bringing all of your talents to the job, whatever it is. You might have been a completely wrong job. It's only something that you can determine. So those sorts of things, looking at your workplace, is it the drive to work? Is the path that you travel, is it a difficult one? Do you go on a major road and there's all sorts of idiots? Even though even if it took you 5 minutes longer, would it be better if you went a different path through some side streets just to make it a little more relaxing and stress-free? So these sorts of things all drain you. The other thing you can look at is your house. Is it full of clutter? If your house is full of just lots of junk, if you're a bit of a hoarder, it's amazing how just clearing it out. I think it's at, what was that, Marie Kondo, I think it was, that did she was huge for a while, doing the old cleanse and throwing stuff out. I did hear of a rule years ago, which I quite like. It's, if you haven't used it in a year, get rid of it, because if you need it, you can always borrow it. And it's amazing how much stuff you hold on to that you don't need. And that sort of thing energetically can drain you, because it's stuff that just hovers around. It's stuff from your past that keeps bringing your past back into your future that can drain you. So clearing out your house can be a good one. The other one can be looking at your children. A lot of people have a very odd relationship with their children. It's one of the things that I've always said to people when they first have children is put the hard work in early, because then when they get older, it's a lot easier. Because if you go easy and all gentle and everything at the start, it's a lot harder later on, because you've then got to try and set the boundaries when everything's established. So having a relationship with your children that is balanced, it's respectful, and everything like that can go a long way to not draining you. I'll give you a little tip from my parenting that I give to people. I came up with 4 rules many years ago with my nieces, and these are young nieces. And I said to them, if you follow these 4 rules, we will never have a problem. I said, your first rule is be respectful, respect people's property, respect their opinion, respect their privacy, respect their space, because you can't expect respect from people if you're not going to give it. So if everyone's respectful, it goes a long way to making life easier, a lot less friction, a lot less draining. So with your children, make sure they're respectful. Next one, use your manners. It's amazing how few people don't use their manners. How many people don't? Yeah, it's amazing how few people don't use their manners. Geez, that's grammatically wrong. I'll try that again. It's amazing how few people use their manners nowadays. I knew I'd get there eventually. See, persist. So using manners, even though it sounds simple and old-fashioned, using your manners is a form of respect. It's an acknowledgement of people. You say please, you say thank you say excuse me, you say sorry. All those sorts of things, very simple, make a big impact. You know, can you come over here, please? It's very simple. Third one, be honest. Now, this doesn't mean, I was having a discussion on the weekend about this. Honesty doesn't mean you have to be honest all the time. We all do these little white lies, and they're okay. It's when they're lies that will hurt. That's where you need to be honest. And especially with children, you want them to be able to tell you the truth, because the earlier they learn that it's okay to tell the truth, the easier it'll be for them when they're in trouble later on in life. Because if they get in a situation where they need your help, if they can't be honest with you and ask for your help, they're in a world of pain then. So if you can set that boundary early about being honest and there's no major consequences, it goes a long way to helping them. And the fourth rule that I have is have fun, because life is serious. There are moments, though, where you want to have fun. You want to relax. You want to laugh. You want to enjoy yourself and be silly and run through puddles or whatever it is. So those 4 rules with parenting will go a long way to resolving some of those things that would be draining you within the parenting. There's other things as well in your life you want to be looking at, like your mindset. Do you have one of these minds that is constantly running things through? Are you role-playing arguments in your head? Are you holding on to stuff from a long time ago that's created a boundary or a belief or a limit that's not working for you anymore? You would have created it for a good reason back then. Now it's a little bit harder. So do you need to work on your mindset? Are there things that you need to look at to make things easier so you're not getting drained. Your emotions is another thing that can drain you. If you don't give your emotions a voice, if you don't allow them a platform where they can be heard and acknowledged and shown that they have a place in your life, you will have issues. You will get drained. If you don't express your anger cleanly, and that's the key, you've got to express it cleanly. If you don't express that anger, excuse me, if you don't express it, it's going to fester away inside you. Same as things like guilt and shame and fears and concerns. All of these so-called negative things all need a voice because they've got messages that need to be heard. And because they're not being heard and they're internalizing everything, they are leaving you drained. They are one of these things that you tolerate. There are so many of them that we hang on to and put up with when we don't need to. And like, if you've been listening for all of this, you know I've already been through a heap. Your physical body, your relationship, your intimate relationship, friendships. I haven't even spoken about friendships, and that's another big one. The old saying is the 5 people or 6 people that you spend most of your time with will determine who you turn out to be, because you will be the average of them. If they complain, you will be inclined to be someone who complains. If you tend to be determined, if they're inclined to be determined, you will be inclined to be determined. So who you hang around with and who you spend time with will determine a lot of who you turn out to be and what you tolerate. So what you tolerate in your friends, if you have friends that are not respectful, they don't appreciate you, they don't value your time, if they're constantly late, these sorts of things, that can be a drain on you, because you will feel not valued, and you won't say anything because you're tolerating it, and that will leave you drained. So friendships are a really important one to value, especially in these days with social media and things. We feel I need to have lots of friends, on Facebook or whatever. I have to get lots of likes. I've got to get lots of comments. I've got to get things that'll validate me and make me feel better. So these sorts of things you need to be looking at. Oh, I've got a little friend buzzing around here. Now, what sort of things haven't I covered that will drain you? Communication, I have touched on it with the conflict resolution. If you have things that are bothering you, it is important to be able to verbalize them. Now, I've spoken about the whiffle stick, and that's good when you need to empty out, when you need to just get things out. If you need to discuss something, you need to be able to look at it from both sides. Now, there's a saying this, I'll go back to the relationship portion, because our intimate relationship tends to be our most important one, and all the others are a derivative of that. So a saying that I have balked at for many years is this happy wife, happy life rubbish. Your happiness is not determined by your partner, and your partner's happiness is not determined by you. It's one thing I made sure with my wife that she understood when we first got together, is I said to her, I'm not responsible for your happiness, you are, and you're not responsible for my happiness, I am. So things like that, when it comes to trying to work things out, it's about negotiating. I don't like this, what's the word everyone uses? The give and take thing. You've got to I can't find the word at the moment, but I like the word negotiate. You sit there and try and find a way that you can both get what you need. Those sorts of things make a difference. And if you can negotiate, and while you're negotiating for what you want, you let it be seen that you're negotiating for what they want, that increases your relationship. Because if you're doing something and you win and you get what you want and they lose what they're wanting, no one has won. You might have got what you want, or they might have got what they want, but you have that resentment that sits there under the surface, and that sort of thing can cause all sorts of issues down the track, because resentment builds, and that's the sort of thing where you snap because you've been tolerating it, and then it all blows up and it all turns to the proverbial. So the things that you tolerate will drain you. And there are many things that drain us these days. Social media, scrolling through your phone, we tolerate that because we feel we're going to be entertained. We're going to feel it's giving us, I don't know, a glimpse into a better life or whatever it is. And those sorts of things don't help us. So limiting toxic people in your life, trying to remove social media as much as you can when it's mindless, looking after your health, exercising, what you put into your mind, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, and also what you don't watch, what you don't listen to, because a lot of us, we don't sit and just have silence. We don't just have that quiet. The amount of people I see now, they can't just walk down the street and listen to the sounds of the world. They've got to have headphones on. They've got to be listening to music or a podcast or something. They've got to be constantly inundated with noise and visual and smell and taste. It's just this constant overwhelming of our system. And tolerating all of that drains us because we don't get that opportunity to relax and find ourselves. So I've touched on a lot of these. I hope some of you have heard me mention something that you go, you know what, I've got to look at that because I'm tolerating that in my life. It's something that's draining me. And I hope that tonight's show will give you things to think about, because, and here's a good example. I read a book a little while ago called Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia, and he was one of these people who didn't like sleep. He was always like minimal amount of sleep so he could get stuff done. And what he realized was, because he was tolerating that smaller amount of sleep, he found he was tired trying to get things done. What he realized is once he could get his 8, 9, 10 hours sleep, he could wake up refreshed, energized, sharp, able to do things quickly, and it made a big difference to his outcome and the results that he was getting in his life. So if you start addressing the things that you tolerate that are draining you, like your sleep, your eating, your exercise, the toxic relationships, the crappy career, the arguments and stuff with your children, whatever it is, if you start dealing with those things, you'll have more energy. The more energy you have, the more you can dedicate to your relationship, to your parenting, to your exercise, to whatever. It all flows on, but it starts by addressing what you're tolerating. Now, we're on the tail end of the show. I haven't had any comments or questions come through, so I'm guessing everyone's just been enjoying all of these. If you have any questions when we don't have the show on like this, if you've got any questions, you can send it through to the Talkie Show at gmail.com, and you'll see it's Talkie as in TALKIE, and that's all one word, the Talkie Show at gmail.com, and send through feedback, comments, questions, anything you'd like, you can send it through to there. I'll address it in the next show. If you would like me to discuss it with a guest that I have on, let me know. If you want me to just explore it on my own, let me know. And that's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I found that dealing with the things that I was tolerating made a big difference to my energies, things like my second marriage. Learned a lot from it, just took a lot of energy out of me. Anyway, so this is the end of the show. This will be replayed on Sunday. Can't remember what time because it's a new show. Can't remember the time. And it'll also be up on YouTube. You can watch this on the Edge Radio Australia YouTube channel. Otherwise, I'll be back next Tuesday with a guest. I'll have with me Luke and Kim Herman, who are a lovely couple, and I love talking to these two and listening to them. And we'll catch you then.